Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone for SEMO A-Corp Sports. David, we are putting an end to basketball.
Yep, the bow was put on last night, and the Sykeston was fortunate to play the very last game of the high school season here in Missouri, and unfortunate result, but just a really great season from them, and just really put a cap on a really nice year for SEMO basketball.
Yeah, so just looking at the notes, I mean, everyone in SEMO finished second that went to state. I feel like as disappointing as that might seem, it's just like, all right, silver medal season, but I mean, how many areas can say that you sent that many representatives and they came back with anything?
Yeah, it was, a lot of teams, had great years. It's hard to win a state title.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just really hard to win it. And there's some really good basketball teams that are out there and in different classes, and just unfortunate that they, all the teams who made the state championship game kind of fell short. But at the same time, just hats off to them for getting that far. And very seldom do we have this many teams, make the state championship games. And unfortunate they all finished second, but, a lot of good basketball teams out there.
Absolutely. I mean, you never really know what's going into a season, the storylines that develop, things like that. And I think overall, this has been an extremely fun season for the casual viewer, for anybody.
Oh, yeah, it has. I mean, we had, nobody expected Sykeston to be in a state championship game this year. I'm sure we'll talk about them here in a little bit, but and we just had, nobody expected Hayti, I think, to be in the state championship game, and you just had a lot of teams out there that just had really good years that maybe weren't expecting it, and obviously we had the teams that were that were expecting good years. They had some good years as well. Just a great basketball year for this area, and some really good teams.
Let's just go ahead and dig into some of these scores from these final games. Starting with Class 4 girls, we had the semifinals. We had Donovan 52 and Benton 42.
Yeah, Donovan, trying to get back to that state championship game and win it again, go back to back. And this is a rematch of the state championship game last year. And it was a close game all the way through. Carson Haygood, she had a huge fourth quarter, 9 points. Benton led 37-31 after three, but they went ice cold in that fourth quarter. They were 1 of 12, and a lot of that due to that Donovan defense just really turned it up and made it tough on them. Donovan made the shots. They were 9 of 12 from the free throw line in the fourth quarter, and made 5 of 6 shots. They hit every shot they needed to hit, made all the free throws, and just did what an experienced team does. And they've been to that moment, and they were able to get through, and just a really nice win for this Donette team.
Absolutely. And then moving on to that championship game, we had Stratford 75, Donovan 55.
Stratford's good. They're big, and they've got their 2 best players are both sophomores. Really good players. One had 31, the other one had 25. Just a really good basketball team, and Donovan played with them. They were down just 5 to start the fourth quarter, but that Stratford team just dominated this Donette team inside, 38-16 rebounding advantage. Just a huge rebounding advantage of this game. They got multiple second chance opportunities, and in that fourth quarter, Stratford just was able just to pull away, and unfortunate for Donovan again, to finish second, but man, just a tremendous team that they played, and a great year. I mean, Donovan, Haygood is just a junior. She finished with 27 in this game, did everything that she could, but they've got Ellie White, the Kirby girls back, Monahan's back. I mean, 4 starters are back for next year off a team that finished second. So you got to expect that they might be back in there with some great coaching that they have. I mean, they could be back against the Stratford team next year, and I would fully expect the Stratford team to be back. I mean, they're again 2 sophomores, just outstanding players. So I kind of look for both of these teams to be back.
Yeah, you think about just what you come back with next year. And I would say, like you said, players, coaching, everything like that matters. But also you're getting this kind of sense of just like, well, we've been there to that moment. Oh, yeah. Winning a state title, that's great. Trying to go back to back, I mean, that's impressive. But, having that drive next year to go back and kind of avenge yourself. I think that's always going to be a driving force. That's always going to be bulletin board material.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you got a lot back. You got some really good players back. And, this is a well-coached team. Coach Epps has done a great job with this team since he took it over. And I think Donovan expects to get to the Final Four now. It's not one of those things where it's a novelty or, hey, hey, we're just happy to be here. They expect to get there, and I think they expect to do well there. I think that's kind of what that Donovan program is at this point, and I expect them. It was Dexter for the longest time with Coach Allen, who was always making the Final Four runs, and now I feel like that's kind of switched over to the Donovan, and so we'll see if they can get back next year.
Absolutely. Moving on to Class 6 girls, we had the semifinal matchups: Staley 52, Jackson 31.
Yeah, Jackson. We saw them on A Corp this year. They're a really, really good basketball team, but they're also really, really young, and I felt that they kind of came out maybe a little. The stage was a little big for them. It took them a while to get adjusted, and they kind of struggled offensively. I mean, Staley was good defensively, but Jackson just kind of struggled. They were only 10 of 38 from the floor, 26%. They turned it over 21 times, just not what a normal Jackson team does. And Staley scored a lot of points off turnovers, and they shot it really well. Beat them up and down the floor, and just something that you're not used to seeing from Jackson. But again, this is a very, very young Jackson team, a lot of sophomores, some freshmen. And it just took a 13-0 run by Staley in that second quarter, kind of put it away. But, this is kind of one of those things where it's just a learning experience for this Jackson team, because there's a good chance that they're going to be back for the next few years.
Yeah, it's always a tough ask just to be put on a stage that's much bigger than you're typically having to deal with. It's understandable to kind of end up in this spot. But like you said, I think this Jackson team is very good, very young, just very impressive to be able to go to this stage at where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they've got some really, really nice players that are, sophomores. They bring a bunch of freshmen off the bench. I mean, they are. This team is going to be a big factor in the next 3 years, because there's a lot of talent there.
And then for the third place game, we had Lee Summit West 65, Jackson 52.
Yeah, another slow start by Jackson. They kind of start out slowly. Lee Summit West jumped out, I think up 12 in the first quarter. They led by 16 at the half, and just Jackson just struggled to shoot it. 3 of 24 in the first half, 13%. Just really struggled shooting the ball. Really shot it better in the second half. Kate Deck really kind of came on. It was like they finally, got their feet under them and got adjusted, but they just, weren't able to. They were too far behind and weren't able to make the run. But I tell you what, they start 3 sophomores. They bring 4 freshmen off the bench. This is going to be a team that, like I said, is going to be around for a while. A lot of talent, and Kate Deck. I mean, she's just a really, really good player.
Absolutely. Moving on for our Class 5 boys, semifinal: Sykeston 56, Raytown South 47.
Yeah, this was a really good game. I thought Raytown South very matched up really well with Sykeston, and it was a pretty tight game for the most part. Both teams kind of struggled to shoot it. Sykeston really struggled shooting the ball the entire playoffs, really. I mean, once they got into the playoffs, they didn't shoot it great against Vianney, but made the shots when they needed to. And this is kind of the same way, Markel Murray, great first half, kind of carried them, finished with 18 points in the game. Kobe didn't shoot it real well, 1 of 6 from 3, but he still found ways to score, was able to get to the rim a little bit. He finished with 14. I thought Ben James had some key rebounds. He's not known as a big rebounder, but I got some key rebounds there in that fourth quarter. But I think the main thing, they were 16 of 18 from the free throw line, the Bulldogs were, and only 40% from the floor, but they really shot free throws well. And
sometimes it's what you need.
And again, what Sykeston always does, they turn you over. And 15 turnovers, 19 points off turnovers. That to me, that was a difference in the game. They just a few turnovers there, and were able to get out in transition, and were able to put it away. But I mean, honestly, I thought the teams were fairly even. Just a few too many turnovers for that Raytown South team. Yeah,
I mean, we've seen Sykeston play this kind of game all year. It's just like that faster pace. They'll make you make mistakes, and then they'll punish you on it. It just seems like you said, matchup great, but at the same time, once you get that going for you, you kind of set your own tempo.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a slower tempo than what I kind of anticipated. I really kind of thought this game would be up and down the floor, but I think both teams kind of at first kind of were feeling each other out, and then they were kind of struggling to score, and it just never really got into the up tempo flow that both these teams kind of like to play. And fortunately for Sykeston, they were able to make a few shots. Murray again that first half, played huge, and they just made the plays whenever they needed to, which they've done all year long. And it was just a really nice game. They were kind of the favorites. They maybe came out and played a little tight, but at the same time, I thought I thought it was a really nice game from them. They didn't play their best, but they were able to get the win.
And then moving on to that championship round, we had MICDS 55, Sykeston 38.
Man, MICDS is really good. They announce the starting lineups, and they come out and they just look a little different. I mean, these guys are big, strong, athletic. You got one guy who's going to play football for University of Minnesota. I mean, he's just a big guy, and their defense is just really suffocating. And just Sykeston was just struggled with it all game, but they made some really, really tough shots in that first half. They came out, hit 2 threes right off the bat. You're thinking, oh, Sykeston's finally going to get hot. But that defense just really kind of suffocated. And then, every shot after that just seemed to be just extremely tough shots. A big up and under there by Ben James. Murray made a really tough shot. Goodwin did. I mean, everything they had to earn, and you just kind of, they had that 1 point lead at half, and it's just like, is this going to be sustainable? Because that's really tough whenever you're having to work so hard to score. And at the same time, MICDS was just kind of missing everything. And you thought, well, they're going to shoot a little bit better. And of course, they come out in the second half. They hit 2 threes right off the bat, and then they pressed, forced a couple turnovers from Sykeston, and Sykeston, I think they had 4 turnovers in the game. And 3 of those right there at the start of the third quarter, and just a big run there by MICDS to put to jump ahead. Yeah,
you typically see it from Sykeston that most of the time they come in with a lead into the half, not close leads either. It's usually 10 points. Let's say that as a median. To kind of only have a few points leading in, then you kind of think, oh well, if you have to work that hard for it, what's that mean going forward? Like you said, once you start shooting better, that lead starts to dwindle very fast.
Yeah, and Sykeston wasn't able to get out in transition. Again, obviously the 38 points. I mean, that's the fewest points they've scored in a game since 2022. I mean, that was, that's been a lot of games. So I think the last time there's a 52-33 loss to New Madrid in 2022. So I mean, that's a long time that they've not broken that 40 mark. And man, they just could not force turnovers. Only 8 points off turnovers in the game. But that MICDS team, they're big and strong, and they just handled it well. They never were bothered, it seemed, by that press. They were able to handle it well, and that's what Sykeston, kind of gets them going. They feed off those turnovers, and they just weren't able to get a lot of those. And when they did get a turnover, a lot of times they were on out of bounds, and so they weren't able to get out in transition and turn those into points. Again, only 8 points off turnovers, and that's just not like a Sykeston team.
Well, what do you think is kind of the difference at that point? Do you think it's more just like Sykeston really hasn't had to see many teams that look like this with who they play in our area compared to what that St. Louis area kind of brings?
Well, yeah, they definitely haven't played anybody from our area that look like that, but I don't know that there's many teams around that look like that. I mean, obviously,
this is the state championship.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, your Principia obviously has a look, and some other schools up there, but yeah, there's very few of these teams. I mean, and they were really, really good. I mean, they were very athletic, and they just guarded so well. They really got after you defensively and just kind of suffocating. Really made you work for everything. Contested passes, and just really, they weren't able to get, Sykeston wasn't able to get into the lane and get anything at going toward the rim. And just hats off to that MICDS team. They played just really, really well, and they knew, they knew kind of how to play within themselves.
Sure.
And didn't really try to force much.
I think overall great season for Sykeston.
Oh, absolutely.
We talked about it before the show. It kind of felt like, to me, it's like you're playing with house money. It's like, we'll go as far as you want to.
Yeah, I mean, nobody, I think, expected them, losing all the starters that they lost from last year's team. The narrative was, well, Sykeson's going to be down this year. And they just continued to play well. And I think we talked about it in the last show. This team just played so well together.
Yeah.
They may not have been the best players, as good as last year, but they played well together. They all knew their role, all knew what, didn't care about points, didn't care about they just wanted those wins. And it just, and you got second in state and you can't, that doesn't happen very often. It's not something, especially in Class 5.
It definitely felt like, for a lot of teams when it's that one guy, this felt like 5 players as a team, not so much one.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you talk about, Markel Murray, he could, at times it looked like he could score 30 points a game, but, he's only getting, 13 because, he's passing the ball, getting a ton of assists and getting the ball out in transition. Kobe, shoots it well. Ben James could probably score more than what he does, but he chooses to pass it. And they always seem to make that extra pass. And it's just a really nice group here of seniors they're going to lose 5 really good senior starters here. And it's going to be, hats off to them again. Just a terrific season. Nobody thought they would be in this game, and they were. And just a tribute to the players and the coaching staff.
Absolutely. Just for the area too. I think it was a great season. We've already mentioned that, but man, the all-stater roster that we have is just it's kind of insane. Just what we brought to the table this year.
Oh, absolutely. In Class 1, you had Jaden Mathis of Cooter and Ryan Jeffries of Delta and Owen Fortner of Risco. Can't argue with any of those.
Yeah.
Maybe, I would have liked to maybe seen CJ Wallace of Delta C7. He had a terrific year. We talked a little bit about him over the course of the season. 26 points a game, 11 rebounds a game, 5 assists a game. 5 steals a game, 3 blocks a game.
That's great numbers.
That's some pretty good numbers. And yeah, it's in a very southern part of the state. They didn't make it out of districts. They got beat in the first round of districts, so it's kind of tough to get. But he's a really, really good player, and maybe deserved to be on that list. I'm sure they talked about it. It's tough to make these all-state teams.
Mm-hmm. I think as far as the rest of this list goes, man, if Eli Rogers didn't get hurt, he'd probably be on here too.
Yeah, yeah, because he's a really good player as well. There's a lot of good players in this area.
Just to attribute that, the list we got from Class 2 is just insane.
Yeah. loaded in Class 2. Hayti with 3. You usually don't see that, and Van Buren with 2. They didn't even win their district and get 2 on the All-State team. That's something you hardly ever see.
Absolutely.
But Javante Payne, Nikolai Combet, and LaDon Webb from Hayti. Just kind of name everybody. Obviously, Landon Burchard from Puxco. I think that was...
He's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much a given. Probably a unanimous vote there. Robert Farmer from South Pemiscot was on the list, and so hats off to him. He's had a great career there for South Pem. Max Wheeler of St. Vincent, and then Aiden Sullivan and Hayes Townsley of Van Buren made it. Is there anybody that you think that, in Class 2 that maybe should have been on there too?
Oh man.
Because we had such good talent in Class 2.
There's a lot of it. This is a pretty complete list though. I'd have to go over.
Yeah, you can't really knock any of these guys. Jet Hancock, I think, deserved to be in the conversation.
He switched his roll up. I think, I'm not going to say that hurt his chances, but I think it probably less flashy, but you were what you needed for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And John Aycock of Bernie. I thought he was outstanding in the post for Bernie. But man, just so many good players in Class 2. It's just tough to make a list. And
we talked about it. At the start of last year and the start of this year is that Class 2 is going to be the most loaded class.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention any of those Charleston kids. Trayshawn Shandon or any of those guys over there. Trinez Lane. They're all really good players too. There's just a lot of good players and a lot of good players that are going to be coming back as well.
And then for Class 3, we had Braden Wallace from Scott City and Corbin Kinder, Calvin Layton from Woodland. All great players. Man, I'm going to miss Corbin Kinder a lot.
Yeah, he's such a fun player. Just always just gritty and gutty and just always just getting in there, mixing it up and making the plays when they need to be made, getting to the rim, didn't care how, only 6 foot, but played like he's about 6'3", 6'4". Walton, a good player for Scott City. He kind of came on this year and just a really good list. Again, you can't really leave any. Everybody is extremely deserving who's on this list. Just a really nice, really nice, group from from class 1 through 3. I'm sure they'll release the 4, 5, and 6 this week coming up. Maybe a couple of Sykeston kids will get on there.
Sure.
I think Kobe Thomas and Markel Murray probably have a chance to get on there.
Pretty deserving, I'd say.
I don't know if anybody from Dexter will get on there. Dexter was just so balanced all year. It's just it's tough to just point out one player there, but they had 5 good ones, and Jackson was the exact same way. Just really kind of tough to point out one. So I don't know if any of those guys will get on the list, but man, just a lot of good talent in this area.
Absolutely. And, for girls too, class
absolutely.
1, we had Grace Ansel from Delta and Lily, I don't want to pronounce anybody's name wrong.
Lily McDonough, I think is how it's pronounced, the freshman. Yeah, she's
also from Delta.
Yeah, she's a freshman, and she's going to be really good. And obviously, Delta just seems to always have that freshman, sophomore girl that dominates, and then, for 4 years, and then they just kind of bring the next one along, and then she's kind of the next one. But and Grace Ansel, she just has had a great career there as well. So 2 very deserving players there for Delta.
Glow Farmer from Portageville. I mean, I've been hearing that name all year.
Yeah, I start to say that name's been around for a couple of years now, but she played really, really well for Portageville, got them to back-to-back Final Fours, and man, just a terrific player there.
And then class 3, the Rubles are on this list.
Yeah, both of them, really took St. Vincent to another level. St. Vincent was good before they got there, and then these last 2 years, they've just kind of, elevated them to another level, and just the Rubel family. I think they've had some really good basketball games in their backyard over the years.
A lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but all 4 girls have made All-State in basketball, I think, but that's pretty impressive.
Just something in the water.
Yeah, something in the genes there.
Man, that pretty much caps off basketball season.
Yeah, just a terrific basketball season this year, man. A lot of fun to watch and a lot of games, and man, it kind of seemed, you look back and it seems like we were just talking about the Christmas tournaments just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
it's something about it. As soon as that November rolls around, it feels like months are just kind of zapped out of existence, just because it's high octane every week. And for a fan, I mean, you're in that week to week basis. For us, it's that week to week, but it's that week to week for everybody.
Yeah, it's kind of a grind, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. I mean, because again, we have a lot of talent in this area, a lot of good basketball. Obviously, is all the teams that made it to state and did well.
Well, you miss it when it's gone too. Once we kind of transition out of basketball, it kind of feels like life just slows all the way down again.
Yeah, my wife was asking me, well, what are we going to do this week? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing this week. I don't have, there's no games. There's no, we still have some college basketball going on, but yeah, she's used to me being gone all the time, and all of a sudden I'm here. I'm at the house all the time.
For next year, like as far as what are you kind of considering as far as like what you expect from teams going forward?
Well, I think, Class 2 is again going to be really good. I think you've got Hayti and Charleston, which, we don't know, obviously we don't know what these teams are going to look like next year. People move, things happen, but I expect Hayti and Charleston to be really good in Class 2. Bernie probably as well. East Carter, I think, will still be, pretty good in Class 2. So I think you're going to have some really good teams in Class 2. I think it's going to be the dominating class. I expect New Matter to be a little bit better. I expect Cooter to be good in Class 1. And then, Clarkton, I think, was kind of up and coming. Can they kind of put some pressure on Cooter this next year coming up? And then for your bigger schools, I mean, I think Dexter's going to be good again next year. They've got a lot back. And Jackson, obviously, they've got a lot back from them. So I think they're going to be really good. I think the question mark is Sykeston. I mean, they've got some younger guys, Cole and Ray, and some of the younger guys are there that are coming up. They've had a really good younger class. And, I think we'll be quick to know not to count them out.
Sure.
It was a lot of people said that last year, well, I guess they're done now, and obviously they weren't. I think they just kind of reload, and I don't expect them to drop off much, if any. I think they'll still be really good, and so I think there's going to be a lot of good basketball in this area again next year.
Well, I think the difference between Sykeston and most schools in the area is the program is kind of solidified itself. It's like this is a basketball program that it's pretty town-wide universal, just like you expect, anybody coming in is going to play to that potential.
Yeah, I think back in the 70s and 80s, even before that, I think Sykeston was always a football school. And I think, sometime in the 90s, as they got to be better at basketball, Fred Johnson kind of took that program over. They kind of switched over to be more of a basketball. And then obviously once Coach Hollifield has got there with the success they've had, they are a basketball school. They look forward to basketball season. I mean, those kids play year round, and again, they've got it rolling, and they just have, like you said, everything's in place there. And it's just a program that just kind of rebuilds and kind of reloads every year. And they're just never really much down. And when they are down, they're still pretty good.
Yeah. No, I mean, this was the down year.
Yeah.
And, runner up in state. I think that's, for a down year, pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I would expect them to be challenging for a district title again next year, and challenging for a SEMO conference title, and being one of the best teams in the area. I mean, I would assume that that's what's going to happen. And that's, I mean, again, they've got a lot of young guys coming up, some young guys, obviously Cole played some huge minutes for them this year, made some big shots, but I mean, they've got other guys as well. So, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be fun to see them transform. I don't know that they're going to be senior loaded next year, so we'll see. So you'll have a lot of, I think, juniors that are going to be playing a big role. But I think it's going to be a fun year for them and a fun year for that SEMO conference. I think that SEMO conference is again going to be really competitive.
I guess just to kind of transition, and if this is too reiterative, I apologize, but who do you think kind of has the biggest question mark going into next season?
I'm still, maybe Cape Central. I don't know what they have coming back. They really kind of struggled this year, and do they kind of figure it out offensively, and what do they have? They did play a lot of younger guys this year, so they could be kind of the question mark of, do they take that next step, and are they going to be good next year, really good next year, or and I think New Matter's a question mark too. They kind of struggled early, but then those sophomores and juniors really kind of started playing better as the year went along, and so do they take that next step? I think those are some. I think they both have the ability to be good next year, but there's a question mark. Do they take that next step in this offseason?
I think there's a few teams that you could probably talk about too. I think Malden's one of those teams that I have a question mark about. We talked about Clarkson a little bit. We've kind of heard just all right, put them on your radar, because in the next coming years, the kids coming in are going to be really good. Obviously, that's a lot of pressure to put on a bunch of kids, but at the same time, it's well, I've been hearing it, so let's see if we see it. I think Puxico is going to be one of those things where it's all right, you got a lot, you're losing a lot of pieces out of that team. How do you kind of reload and reiterate of what you want to do with your program? I think Coach Fernetti, I think he's got a lot of talent as far as how he coaches his kids. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think people are very quick to write Puxico off now that, Chet Hancock, Landon Burchard, all your seniors are leaving. But at the same time, it's not like you don't have pieces to work with.
Oh, yeah. Obviously Stroud coming back, I think, Dexter doesn't want to see him for sure.
Nope. Armstrong, I think he's another great piece.
Yeah, I mean, they've got pieces. Woodland's another one that, they lose pretty much their entire starting lineup. But, they've got a really good JV program.
Sure.
And they had some guys that came off the bench for them that were younger players, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they develop and can they kind of continue that growth that Woodland's had over the last 3-4 years, and I think the whole Stoddard County Conference as a whole is going to be still pretty a pretty stout conference.
Yeah, I think as far as Stoddard County goes, we saw it a lot in the JV tournament and just JV regular season. JV's kind of up and down because you're kind of figuring out what you have,
right?
But at the same time, we saw a lot of exciting stuff out of both Woodland and Dexter. Those are the two that I was just all right, there's some Woodland's got a kid who can dunk already. Yeah. So you see that during the tournament, and it's just all right, well, that's already impressive. But then you think about just regular season, how many of these teams just kind of went blow for blow with each other, and what you're pushing forward next year, what kind of pieces can you put together with what you already have?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these teams are already playing freshmen and sophomores up. Obviously Dexter plays Nichols up as a freshman. Richland had some younger guys play up. So, they're going to be back. And the same way with Bloomfield. I mean, Bloomfield leading scorer, I think, was a freshman. I mean, so obviously these younger guys are just going to develop and get better and better. And then you add some of these pieces from the JV teams on with them as well. And maybe you see some improvement up from these teams. And again, I think the Stoddard County Conference Conference will be good again next year, and then you switch it down to the Boot Hill Conference, which we talked about a lot this year. I expect them to be really good next year. I think there's a lot of younger talent in that, down at that level as well. So, I mean, both those conferences I think are going to be stacked. I mean, we always talk about the SEMO Conference being, the elite conference, but man, there's some other good conferences too, and obviously the Stoddard County and the Boot Hill Conference I think are going to be really good next year.
I always think it's funny too because, like you said, we talk about SEMO Conference like it's this vaunted thing. At the same time, we sometimes see those teams struggle against these smaller conference schools.
Yeah, they do, and this year was kind of really it was Sykeston and Jackson and Dexter, and then everybody else kind of feeling their play, feeling their spots out, and so I mean next year I think that all these teams are going to be as good, if not better. I think you're going to see some teams, some younger teams. Notre Dame, we haven't talked about them. They've got a lot coming back off their team from this year, and obviously they want to make a run. Dexter's knocked them out the last few years. They've kind of I'm sure that's going to kind of motivate them.
Sure.
And obviously we talked about New Madrid and Charleston. Charleston's going to be good. I mean, Charleston's going to be really good. They have pretty much everybody back. So I mean, a lot of good teams and a lot of stuff to talk about here in the next few months as we kind of last year it seemed like we had a lot of talk with Puxico, a lot of talk with we heard Hayti was coming, that they had a really good group. We knew that they were coming, but you knew who the really good teams were, and then you heard you had some of these other ones that you weren't sure about. I think this year is going to be even more of that. I think just a lot of teams you're just not really sure about.
Yeah, and I think that makes for interesting conversation. Well, obviously we'll know more around Christmas time, who's who. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting some mix-ups, though. Yeah. I feel like that's probably the biggest thing, is that you're going to see some teams that you weren't really expecting in places that, a lot of teams that have had 2-3 years of being dominant just have held that place.
Yeah, everything's kind of cyclical. So, you have these good runs, and then you may be a little bit down for a little bit, and then so you always kind of see that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting some really good basketball, and I can't wait till some of these rib cities that you start hearing some stuff over the summer of they're going to be really good. They're looking because Sykeston was one of them. Early in the summer you heard they lost to Puxico pretty bad, and that was kind of the narrative. But then I kept hearing that I live in Sykeston. I kept hearing that I think we're going to be pretty good. I think we're going to be pretty good. And sometimes you just is that wishful thinking, or is that the actual? And you just kept hearing it more and more, and it just kind of kept building. And then as the season started, it's like, hey, I think they are going to be pretty good. And so you start hearing all that stuff in the Rib City about how good these teams are going to be, and so I'm kind of anxious for some of that, just to kind of hear what the talk is this year.
Well, it's always exciting too when it's different situations, but I don't think anybody expected Kobe Thomas to just put the entire team on his back and become that front runner of just like, okay, yeah, we can put this all together. Like, that was something I don't think a lot of people expected. But at the same time, it's like once that starts to formulate, then it becomes very exciting to follow.
Oh, absolutely. And because Sykeston, obviously they lost, all their starters from last year. And then you're just like, okay, well, who's going to step up and who's going to be the guy? Can Kobe be the guy? Can Markel Murray be the guy? And obviously they again, everybody just fit their role perfectly, and everything just kind of came together, and that's what you have to make these runs. You can't just have these teams that have one or two people that are just really good and looking for their points, and no, you've got to have an entire 5-man group that knows their roles and knows how to play, and that starts in the summer. That starts in these in the Bearcat Event Center, and at the Sportsplex in Cape, and over in Poplar Bluff, and in these summer events, and that's kind of where it starts now.
Absolutely. David, that's all I got. Very exciting basketball season. I mean, we'll see what happens next. We got a lot of sports coming up. Can't wait for all of those. Like, man, baseball, football, everything like that. That's all coming up, and a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just got to get a deep breath here, and just kind of have a moment here, just to kind of recollect ourselves.
Absolutely. All right, I think that's going to do it for us, though. This has been the SEMO Sports Zone. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.